Well, everybody, the day has come. Mafia the Old Country is here, and I am ready for it. If you don't know me, I'm a big fan of Mafia. I really like Mafia games. I am not ashamed to say it. You know, they are interesting because they are not always the most intense in terms of like gameplay or combat or stealth or whatever, but they have some of the best world building, some of the best stories, some of the best voice acting and performances and narrative direction of any series that's out there. And Mafia the Old Country is a really fascinating game specifically for what it is. And I'm going to explain that as we go through this video, because the fact that this exists period is kind of a miracle given what Hangar 13 has been through. But I'm here for it, and I'm glad that we are here. I've put a few hours into the game already, including 2-ish hours on stream earlier today on my second channel, Luke Stevens Live, which you should absolutely be subscribed to. Links below. And I'm going to share some of my thoughts with you. We're going to avoid spoilers and all of that stuff because of course, and let's just get into it. The first thing to know is that Mafia the Old Country is a prequel to the original game trilogy. It's set in early 1900s Sicily, and we play as a brand new character, Enzo. Now, I'm not going to go into too many details as to the story and the plot and everything, because you're going to find that out yourself if you're interested and you play the game yourself. But what I will say is that they have done a pretty stellar job of realizing the setting, the music, the audio design, the voice acting, performances. It's all pretty stellar, and all of this is wrapped up in a $50 package, which is, I think, pretty fair, especially given the fact that the game is approximately 12-ish hours long going through the story, and that's not counting like collectathons or the free roam mode, which is what I'm in right now. You can actually open up the map and explore, like you can see here, and this is the entire map of the game world. And when you go into free roam mode, you can just freely explore it to your heart's content if you so desire, looking for little collectibles and various things hidden around the map. But perhaps most importantly, they are not trying to make this into a Mafia 3 type game where it's filled with different zones and regions that you need to level up with your syndicate of the Mafia and get more influence in order to like drive more crime or something. It's not that. This is not a 2016, you know, Ubisoft-esque open world collectathon game. Instead, it is a linear narrative adventure game with a very large map that story plays out within, but it is not filled with all these open world activities. You're not going to be synchronizing viewpoints. You're not going to be going and like completing dynamic world events and stuff like that. You are going to be playing through a narrative within this massive sandbox, if that makes sense. And it probably does if you're familiar with the Mafia games, because this is how Mafia 1 and Mafia 2 worked. They had big maps, sure, but the story was just navigating you through that map, and they never really pushed you that hard to go and do things within the open world, because that's just never really been the strong suit of Mafia. They've never really figured out the open world thing. And so for Mafia the Old Country, they decided, well, if we can't do it justice, let's just not do it. And I think that that's honestly sometimes a better option. If you can't do something well, don't even try. And in the case of video games, when you do something poorly, it just creates all sorts of extra ammo and fodder for people to levy against you for why they shouldn't buy your game. So if you can't do the open world thing well, maybe just don't do it and put your efforts into something you can do well, like the narrative, like world building, like the music. And that is something that they definitely have pulled off in Mafia the Old Country. In the first 2 hours of the game, which we played on stream, things are on pretty tight train tracks, but I think that serves it well as it introduces you to the cast of characters, to the world, and the core game mechanics. It also introduces us to the character Enzo in a really gentle and, I think, immersive way. Of course, I haven't finished the game yet, so I don't know what I will think of Enzo when all is said and done, but I would say as of right now, I really enjoy him as a character, and I'm liking where this is going. ... You know, Mafia games have always kind of been rags to riches stories, and each one of the protagonists has a reason for why they're pursuing a life of crime, let's say, and usually it's for a conflicting yet arguably noble purpose. You know, it's not typically just greed for the sake of greed. They actually have some reason for doing what they want to do. And in this case, it's also true. I mean, you can see the motivations are well thought out and justified, and all the characters have reasons for doing what they do in the way that they do it. And again, with Mafia, these games are about the story. They're about the narrative, about the characters, about the world. And if they can execute on that well, it's worth playing. Like, it's worth getting into. I understand some people just fundamentally cannot understand playing a game that's only 12 hours long and thinking, yeah, I'm good, I'm happy with that. But when you are a narrative game player, like, that is all you really need. Some people will say, no, if I don't get 200 hours out of a game, I don't buy it. Even if it's $5, I don't buy it. Somebody in stream said that the other day. And I can respect that. I just don't think that way. That's not how I operate. That's not how I work. I'm like, if the story's good, I will eat it up. I will go for it. But the story has to be good. I just, that's who I am. I'm one of those gamers. But that's why it's also important to note that for the reviews of Mafia the Old Country, they are all pretty consistent across the board. It's currently, as of the time of recording, sitting at a 76 on Metacritic. This is on PC exclusively. There's only one review on Xbox and one review on PlayStation, and they are also in line with the other reviews. A lot of 8 out of 10s. Some people are going down to the 7s. But, you know, it's right in that like high 70s, C+, like good, but not necessarily like amazing or masterpiece range. And among these reviews, one of the most common and consistent things is that they say the narrative is great, the voice acting's tremendous, the writing is really, really good. So all of the narrative side of the game, really, really good. It's the gameplay where it starts to struggle and suffer. It doesn't really do anything that original. It doesn't do anything to break any molds. It's not introducing fresh ideas to stealth or combat or anything. It's doing things you have almost certainly seen before in other games. It just does everything fine enough or well enough to be passable. It's the narrative where it excels. And for some people, that's a selling point. For other people, that disqualifies this game from consideration. But that's why I'm making this video, to tell you, like, if you like the idea of a really good narrative, Mafia the Old Country seems to deliver it across the board. And from what I've played, I can back that up as well. It's just the gameplay where it's not breaking any boundaries. It's not doing anything crazy. You know, they're not introducing anything that's going to win any sort of awards in the gameplay department. But I do think it'll be nominated for like best narrative at the Game Awards, most likely. Because I really do think it's that good so far, at least. Maybe they totally lose me by the time I finish the game. But as of right now, I'm in it. I'm in it. It's right up there with Mafia Definitive Edition in terms of execution on a technical level. I do like my horn. It's so sad. But I guess we could also touch on the performance of the game. This was a primary concern for me. I just, you know, anytime I see an Unreal Engine game nowadays, I'm really nervous for performance. I get nervous for lack of optimization, for bugs, for stuttering, for all sorts of nonsense like that. I just get worried about it because it's a consistent issue in a lot of these games. But they've actually done a pretty solid job here. Now, I will not lie to you. It is heavy. This is an Unreal Engine game through and through. If you have the hardware to run it cranked up on high settings or ultra settings or epic settings, it can look amazing. What you're seeing right now is fully cranked out. This is as good as the game can possibly look. And I think it looks pretty good. I really do. I think it looks really solid. The water looks really nice. The reflections are good. Even when the camera pans down, you can see some screen space reflections are being used for like the land, but then things like the posts are still getting reflections traced as well. I think in terms of the clothing, the fabric detail is really, really good. The hair is also pretty solid as well. And just in general, I think it's a good looking game, especially the environments. The environments look really, really nice across the board. Like every single level, every single set piece I've seen, it looks really good. The cutscenes, like I said, are also really, really well executed. The voice acting is tremendous, and the script is also really good to boot. And again, this isn't gonna come as a surprise if you played Mafia Definitive Edition, which was their last project, but they've maintained it. And I was worried about that because, again, they've been through the ringer since Mafia 3. I mean, they really, really have. If you missed out on my skeptical look video that I did like a month ago on Mafia Definitive Edition, I'll basically just recap the main points. Hangar 13, after Mafia 3, underwent waves of layoffs, of restructurings. They were working on one project that was eventually abandoned and canned, and then they had even more layoffs hit, tons of people fired and turned over constantly. And even after Mafia Definitive Edition, they even had another round of layoffs after that. Over the course of the last decade or so, there's very, very few people at Hangar 13 that were working there on games like Mafia 2. I mean, even games like Mafia 3. Not many of those people still remain. There are still some holdovers, some people that have been there since the very beginning, and those people, you can certainly tell they had influence on this project, because this very much does feel, oh my God, this very much does feel like a love letter to those old school Mafia games in a really good way. I was worried that they would have lost some of the magic, but it seems like they've actually executed on it really well. I wonder if I can take these other cars even in free roam mode. Can I? I don't think I can. What are you doing? Why is she crying? Bro is heartless. He's just like, can you stop? Can you stop? I don't care. Stop. What a heartless bastard. But really, that's why I said that it is amazing this game exists, period, because most studios don't undergo that level of rework, firing, hiring, firing again, rehiring, more firings and layoffs. Like, you don't typically see that happen and then the studio be capable of much of anything more than like doing support work. It's pretty rare to see them actually deliver a finished product at the end of the day that's reviewed pretty well, which the 76 rating puts it in the good category according to the consensus of reviews. So it's a pretty impressive achievement that this thing exists, period. And having played it as a Mafia fan, I'm here for it. I mean, it's reviewing like a Mafia game. Gameplay is a weak point, narrative is super strong, and so if you've played these games before, you know exactly what that means, and you're probably like, sounds great. Sounds like a Mafia game. If you're not a Mafia fan, you're probably like, no, what are you guys talking about? It's a 76. Don't bother with it. But seriously, it's just, if you don't get it, you don't get it. But if you get Mafia games, if you get the narrative and how good these stories can be, you're just as giddy as me. I mean, I've been waiting for this game for a long time, and I hope it does well, honestly. Like I said at the top, it's only $50 to buy it, and for 12 hours, I think that's pretty solid, especially with how good the narrative is. And if this does well, I think the odds are pretty high that they get greenlit to not just expand as a team, but to make like a Mafia 4, to actually go and make the next generation Mafia game that has the full budget, has the full timeline and everything on it. And I think we could be in for a real treat, because this game, by some accounts, according to some interviews and stuff, was probably thrown together in like 2.5 to 3 years. Like, really, they did not spend a whole lot of time on this game for how big it is. Like, for 12 hours, I think Hellblade 2 had a total of 2.5 to 3 years in development, like full development, by the time it came out, and they barely hit 5 hours of total runtime on that, and had a lot less when it came to narrative or like scope and scale than this game. And the teams are quite similar in size, apparently. So I think they've managed to pull off something pretty damn impressive here. I'm glad to see it. I'm having a good time with it, and I'm excited to have Mafia back, and I hope it does well in terms of commercial performance with people actually buying it, because I would love to see that team get reinvigorated and get greenlit to make a full massive Mafia game, because this isn't quite Mafia 4, you know, it's Mafia -1, like it's Mafia prequel energy, and it's really good in that regard and in that capacity, but it's just not quite on that same massive scale as like Mafia 1 or 2 were for their time. Now, as for the gameplay itself, from what I've played in the first handful of hours of the game, it is very familiar. We're talking about stealth sequences with pretty basic cover-based hiding and shifting around cover to avoid the gaze of guards that are on a basic patrolling schedule. And then you have combat, which is pretty basic cover-based shooting. Again, very familiar if you played previous Mafia games, especially Mafia Definitive Edition. And this is maybe the key point. Like, Mafia the Old Country pretty much takes all of the systems from Definitive Edition and just kind of pulled them over here. So if you play Definitive Edition, this will feel like the same basic game. You know, it'll feel kind of like when you play one of those new Yakuza games and it's just the previous Yakuza game, but maybe with one new twist on it. That's basically what we have here. It is an iteration of the thing from Definitive Edition, and I'm okay with that. And if you played Definitive Edition, chances are you're okay with it too, because that was really, really good, just especially with the narrative and everything. But if you're looking for something really crazy, if you're looking for like Last of Us 2 levels of AI complexity and with like really intense different levels of combat and movement and stuff, it's just not here. They do have the knife fights, which is basically what they use for chapter ending boss fights. It's pretty straightforward. Initially in the trailers, I thought it was going to be basically just rock, paper, scissors, but it has a little bit more nuance to it than that. It actually plays similarly to the combat in old school Assassin's Creed games, where you can break somebody's posture with an RB attack, and then you can also do basic slashes and stabs and then a dodge move as well. It's pretty straightforward. Luckily, it plays out fairly quickly, so it does stay a little bit interesting, and it's not something you can just button mash your way through like those old school Assassin's Creed combat sequences. But overall, it's not that remarkable. But that's just the story of gameplay in Mafia games. Like, it does enough to keep you engaged over the course of a short 10 to 12 hour story, but ultimately you're playing it for the story. That's what they're good at. That's where they put all of their effort, and I think they nailed it here as well. Like, it is Mafia through and through. And that's what you're going to hear from a lot of different reviews and people talking about Mafia the Old Country is it's Mafia. And if you've played these games, you know exactly what that means, and you're probably okay with it. But if you like, you know, paying $10 to get an indie game that has 200 hours of replay value, and you don't like spending any more than that for, you know, a price to hour ratio, you're probably not going to eat this up. And it's just because this is a different kind of game. It is a linear narrative action adventure, I guess, game. And it has a steeper price to hour count, certainly. But if you really like good stories in games, I think you understand that and are willing to tolerate the shorter runtime in favor of a better story. But I mean, seriously, look at the architecture, look at what they've been able to do. Like, with the recreation of these cities. And I've never been to Sicily. I've never been. I shocker, I know. Sheltered boy from Colorado has never been to Sicily. But I mean, it's just a beautiful recreation. Even the recreation of the cars is spot on, even down to the sound effects and everything that they have for it. It's just really, really well done, and I'm eating it up. I love these games set in historical settings. It is one of the reasons I fell in love with Mafia, and it's also one of the reasons why I love the Assassin's Creed games. You know, this may be shocking if you have only played the recent Assassin's Creed games, but they used to be set in like actual historical settings without magic or too much fantasy stuff. Like, you could just play through a game set in the Revolutionary War, and then play through a game set in Victorian England, and then play through a game set in France during the French Revolution. And that's how they used to be. And I loved exploring historical settings in a video game format. I think it was a really cool way to learn about those settings. And Mafia's also been really, really good at it. I still play Mafia 2 every Christmas when the snow starts falling, because when you play Mafia 2, you know, you crank up the radio, you listen to the Christmas songs, and you just drive through the icy streets. I love it. It's like deep in my soul how much I love it. I'm a big fan. I'm glad to have Mafia the Old Country. I'm here for it. I won't pretend to be unbiased with this one. I love Mafia, and I'm glad to see them deliver something that I think is exactly what they needed to deliver, which is a solid narrative, even if the gameplay is a little bit lacking. It's exactly what many of us expected from Mafia, and that's probably why I am happy, because it's exactly kind of what I was expecting and wanting. So here we are. And who knows, if this goes well and they make good money on it and they get greenlit to make that next game with more time and more devs, they can probably take that next game up another level and just go even crazier with it, and maybe deliver some of those really impressive gameplay innovations and stuff. You never know. You never know. But for the team, the time, and everything else that they had to deliver this, I'm really impressed so far. I can't wait to keep playing it and finish it over the next day or two. And oh my God, this poor car. I swear when we started, the wheels were straight. Now they're not, but anyway. Thank you for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me. I love you all desperately, and I'll see you in the next video. Again, go subscribe to my second channel, Luke Stevens Live. You could have been here with us while we played the game live. It's always a great time to hang out with you guys, so get over there if you haven't already. We also post all of our stream clips and all sorts of stuff like that, so we have a great time. Get over there and sub if you haven't already. Until next time, my friends, much love. I'll see you in the old country. Bye-bye.